You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbit, and this is Year of the Demon. It is New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is a new year, 2022, and I'm officially announcing 2022 to be the Year of the Demon. So as a podcast listener, you're getting a sneak peek on early preview, but tomorrow, January 1st, Night Demon announced the release of a special compilation album, Year of the Demon, to be released worldwide on March 25th, 2022.
Hello, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Armand John Anthony here, and I'm here to announce the new compilation album, Year of the Demon. It's a killer, repackaged compilation of the singles that were released exclusively on 7-inch vinyl in 2020. Now you say, well, what do I get extra? Well, what you get extra are all the B-sides, which are not available anywhere before this except for the vinyl, which were very limited in quantity and sold out pretty much as soon as we released each one. Pretty much the day of each release, those puppies sold out and they're gone. So we thought it would be cool to put it all together. I gave all the songs a new master. I ran all the songs through analog tape as just another way to give it a little bit of a different, feel, vibe, sound, warm thickness.
I'd say as far as Night Demon's concerned, we are super excited to release this Year of the Demon album. This is a great idea to put all this together and put it out. There's probably a lot of people out there that haven't heard the singles and the B-sides.
So this is going to be announced tomorrow on New Year's Day, but as a podcast listener, you're getting a bit of an early scoop on this. Here is the press release with all the info, read by the man who wrote it, friend of the band, sometimes crew member, on-stage Rocky, the man himself, Kit Ekman.
Southern California metal masters Night Demon proudly announced the release of a special compilation album, Year of the Demon, via Century Media Records worldwide on March 25th, 2022. For a decade, the name Night Demon has been synonymous with top-shelf traditional heavy metal. Indeed, the trio consisting of Jarvis Leatherby, vocals and bass, Armand John Anthony, guitar, and Dusty Squires, drums, have long been lauded as purveyors of stellar songs, searing live shows, and a relentless work ethic. When the world ground to a gut-wrenching halt in March 2020, Night Demon's extensive touring plans were derailed. However, their creative flame burned brighter than ever. In the spring and summer of 2020, the band unleashed a series of 5 standalone 7-inch singles in strictly limited colored vinyl format. These singles showcased brand new original songs, cover versions, and previously unheard live recordings to tide the fan base over during the lockdown. Night Demon's loyal legions voraciously devoured these releases, and all physical products sold out instantly. Aside from the new original songs, which were also released on digital and streaming platforms, the single recordings were exclusive to the 7-inch vinyl pressings. They have never been made available to the public for purchase in any other format until now. On Year of the Demon, Night Demon collects all 5 of the rare out-of-print 2020 singles into a unified compendium for release in a broad range of physical and digital formats. The reasons for doing so are straightforward. After all, the strictly limited nature and quick sellouts of the initial 7-inch releases meant that even die-hard Night Demon fans may have missed out on the opportunity to obtain them in a physical edition. More importantly, these tracks are simply too strong to be relegated to a footnote in the Night Demon discography. Empire's Fall and Vysteria mark 2 of the fastest, most intense Night Demon songs ever written. Kill the Pain packs a wallop, distilling the band's signature sound to its most powerful essence, coupled with a deeply personal message. And Are You Out There is Night Demon's heartfelt homage to the late, great Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy. The cover tunes are undiscovered gems in their own right. From the obscure new wave of British heavy metal glory of Fast Bikes, originally recorded by Le Griff, to the remake of Cirith Ungol's classic 100 Miles Per Hour, featuring Cirith Ungol's own Tim Baker in a duet with Leatherby, to the demonized take on the somber Thin Lizzy hymn, The Sun Goes Down. Finally, the live recordings capture some of Night Demon's most unforgettable moments on stage. The Night Demon Wasted Years cover is a previously unreleased track recorded the same night as Night Demon's legendary live Darkness album in Cleveland, Ohio. And the 2 Scorpions classics, Entrance and Top of the Bill, were recorded live in Germany with special guest Uli John Roth, ex-Scorpions, creating licks and leads with Armand. The point is simple. These songs deserve a wider release than the collector's edition 7-inch vinyl treatment they received in 2020. To that end, Year of the Demon compiles these prized tracks in one place for all to enjoy. The package is rounded out by stunning cover artwork created by Don Fury. Ultimately, Year of the Demon is aptly named because it captures a year in the life of Night Demon. A year in the life of us all, unlike anything any of us had ever experienced before. It is a snapshot, a permanent marker of that moment in time. Of course, Night Demon are well aware that their audience is ravenous for fresh material. To that end, they are excited to reveal that they are presently working on an all-new studio album with a scheduled release date of November 4th, 2022. Stay tuned for more details soon.
So 2022, a compilation and a brand new album of all new material coming later this year. So Year of the Demon. So January 21st, 2020, the pre-order starts for this compilation, Year of the Demon, on nightdemon.net, and there is a slew of various formats and variants. It's going to be released on limited black vinyl, limited silver vinyl, a limited to 500 lilac vinyl, and a very limited 300 sky blue Night Demon band exclusive. There's also going to be a CD edition in a limited digipack. It's Year of the Demon. Here's Jarvis Leatherby.
Year of the Demon. So let's just start out by saying I wouldn't really consider this Night Demon album number 3. This is a compilation of the 2020 singles. So it's dubbed Year of the Demon, the 2020 singles collection. Now, the title, that is very appropriate. We were planning on doing an album called Year of the Demon in 2020, compiling the singles. We were actually going to do twice as many singles. That's the truth of it. We'll talk more in depth about the next record and how that all falls into place. But just imagine if there was twice as many singles minus the live single with Uli Roth with original material. Again, we'll talk about that more later, but Year of the Demon is coming out March 25th, 2022. It is a full compilation of the 2020 singles for the first time on a full 12-inch and a CD, and I'm sure we'll do a cassette and digital and all that shit. But when it really comes down to it, 2022 will be the Year of the Demon, meaning the year of Night Demon. And we are hell-bent on making that happen with all the plans that we've had to put aside. We've just front-loaded everything into 2022.
So, as you know, over 2020, Night Demon released 5 singles with exclusive B-sides, and they very quickly sold out. So, half of these songs were not available anywhere until now, unless you managed to snag one of the limited, sold out 7 inches. If you didn't, you were out of luck. And these 7 inches, they sold out quick.
When we released the singles and the artwork, actually, when we release anything in Night Demon, we do a limited run of everything we release. Everything's limited copies. That's by design. One thing we've learned in the metal community, in the metal world, people like to collect things. And these items are in high demand when you release limited copies. And we've been doing that since day one. There was no doubt in our minds that these vinyls were going to sell out. That's just the way it goes, and we know that. We know how loyal our fans are. We know how much they want these limited copies, and they want to hold that album in their hand and look at the artwork and go over, every piece of writing that's on there. So, yeah, we got the best fans in the world for that. That's for sure.
I think the first thing that needs to be talked about are the singles themselves. To my recollection, I'm not going to say that the label wasn't supportive, because they've always been very supportive, and they've been supportive more now than ever from 2020 on. I mean, and I do remember some hesitation. I do remember that, but I do remember Philip Schulte, who had worked at the label for a long time out there in Germany, a long time. He was part of the Wacken shenanigans, I guess, when he, at the time, if you go back and listen to the Wacken episode, at the anniversary party, but he had gotten promoted. He had become president of the record company in 2020, and actually 2019, I believe. And I told him my idea, and again, as far as I can remember, the idea wasn't met with any, I wasn't shut down. But there was definitely a lot of questions, and there was maybe some hesitation, because heavy metal is still very much a full album genre. Full albums are what sell. That's what the press writes about. They don't even really write about EPs too much.
My name is Philipp Schulte. I'm 46 years old, and I'm the vice president of Century Media Records. I work at the Berlin office of Century Media Records. We have 2 offices in Germany. One office is located in Dortmund. This is where it all started. The other office is now located in Berlin as part of Sony Music. This is where I work. I'm with Century Media since January 2001, so for over 20 years now. And I have done a bunch of things at the label. I started as an intern, I worked at the sales department, I worked as a product manager for many years. I was head of product management for a couple of years, and since 4 years now, I think, it's 4 years, I'm running the label together with my colleague Jörg Lindemann, who's in the Dortmund office. And I hope I will be doing this for many more years. My first impression of the idea was, please no. Simply because Century Media has so far not released one Night Demon album outside of North America. And I was very much looking forward to putting out a new album, like a real album. As we have never done that before in Europe. And then the band came up with this, bold idea. Of course, it's nothing new to release singles rather than a full album. It's actually quite common these days. But 2 years ago, when we started talking about this, it must be close to 2 years now. I admit that I didn't think that a band like Night Demon is the number one choice for such a campaign. But the band presented the plan to me, and it looked solid. And I thought, well, it's worth a try. This is a heavy metal band, and heavy metal fans also listen to selected singles of their favorite bands. And of course, by now we all know that the more you put focus on a particular track, the better it will perform, the better it will be known by the fans when the band is playing live. So I agreed to this, and then we put out 5 7-inches. 7-inch is a cool collector's item, but it's actually nothing that makes anyone any money, except for the pressing plant. But even the pressing plants, I think, prefer to produce 12 inches rather than 7 inches. It's a costly product in manufacturing. It's the fans have to pay a lot of money for it. It can easily be $10 or even more for just 2 tracks. So the prices are high, and you need a very strong fan base to pull this off.
Singles are kind of, a lot of people look at singles now as the new way of doing things in the digital age. But actually, I look at it as the old way of doing things, because that's how things started with early rock and roll in the 50s. Everything was a single. Everything was on a vinyl 7-inch or a vinyl 45. And the LP, which stands for long play, for those who don't know, didn't come into play until later, when bands had many hits and many 45s and many 7-inches, and people wanted to go home and play all the songs. And so the first LPs actually were compilations. They were compilations of singles. So what's old is new, right? Again, like Night Demon taking chances in the new age, but again, not totally reinventing the wheel, but nobody sees it that way. Us being scholars of the history of music and rock and roll specifically, we do have some knowledge of that, and it's something that we wanted to do. And with the way that that the digital platforms are working now, the single thing, I thought was a great idea. And so I pitched this plan, and Philip actually said, hey, I'm going to fly to LA and I'm going to drive to Ventura and I'm going to meet up with you guys. And he came here and met up with us one morning, and it was raining, surprisingly, here. And we played him instrumental track of one song. I think it was Empire's Fall. And he loved it. And he was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's fucking go for it. Let's do it. I think this will be a great experiment. I think that we can show Sony some things of how this can work in the metal world. And there it was. We were off to the races.
Hi, my name is Niklas Tchaikovsky, and I work as a product manager at Century Media Records, which is part of Sony Music Entertainment. I'm with the label for quite some time now, but was on a nearly 7 years hiatus and returned January 2021. I started out as a music business rookie in my early 20s, and I was working for Century Media as a publicist for 4 years. I wasn't back at Century Media yet, but the release of those 7-inches caught my attention. I do love 7-inches, and I think it is a great idea releasing those in short intervals. It reminds me of the 50s when singles were released all the time. And I think nowadays bands have to work way harder compared to 10 or 15 years ago. I think it's a good idea to come up with ideas like this and challenge yourself with several singles, for example, like Night Demon did, and releasing those in a short time, and just keep pushing the boundaries and also rethink the game. I also think that there are many parallels to today's music publishing when you look at genres, for example, like hip hop or electronic music. Of course, those are more digitally driven than the physical product. And in general, I think it hasn't really caught on in rock and metal to release that much physical product in a year. I can only think of King Gizzard and a Lizard Wizard, from Australia, and I think they're doing something right. But I mean, genre-wise, they're all over the place, of course. And what I love about is every single can be released along with an own campaign, and this is great. And just you have so much room for different ideas, and yeah, therefore I'm totally supportive. It's too bad they couldn't really tour that much on those releases, but this will change, I think, next year.
This is Arne Jamelle. I was Night Demons product manager at Century Media Records in the year 2020. And I was in charge of putting out these 5 singles / 7 inches that the band wanted to release instead of a full album. Well, to be honest, my first thought was, this sounds interesting, because we had already talked about before, like the label that we wanted to, get bands to release singles instead of full-length albums whenever they did not have enough material for an album. In the digital world, you have to, come up with stuff like that. Still, when Jarvis approached us and told us about his plan, we were like, okay, let's hear what your plan actually is. And then it became clear that it was to be a like 1 single per month, and they were also to be released as physical singles, like 7 inches, and as surprise drops. So there wasn't like gonna be any pre-order, and that was, quite adventurous. I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be a logistical nightmare, because even back then you had long lead times for ordering and manufacturing vinyl, and you couldn't really readjust quantities based on sales numbers in between, or, you had really early deadlines. So, yeah, it was quite the adventure.
My name is Stephanie Shoulders. I do product management and artist relations for Metal Blade Records. Prior to that, I worked doing the same job for Century Media Records and their family of labels, which is how I came to start working with Night Demon. As a product manager, it's my job to coordinate between the band and the record label, and sometimes with managers and agents as well. Usually my time with a band starts when they're about to finish in the studio. At that point, we discuss all the logistics related to production delivery. We talk about formats and make sure that we get the right masters needed, all the technical fun stuff, label copy, metadata, which is a bunch of information used to help identify the record, songwriters, all of that essential information that we need in the digital age. So after Live Darkness, the band was writing songs, and we were all planning on a new full-length, a new studio full-length, to be the next Night Demon release. But as time went on, and we heard revisions of the tracks, and the band continued to work on the tracks, it became pretty clear that each of the tracks could stand on their own, and that they were pretty different. So once we started talking about producers, it became more of a difficult conversation. The songs were not stylistically similar, other than having a classic Night Demon sound to them. They each kind of had their own vibe. And when we came to the discussion, trying to figure out what producer would be the best to capture the song in its full essence, it was nearly impossible. I remember Century Media's A&R, Mike Gitter, suggesting a couple names, but the band really already had several people in mind that they wanted to work with. But when we thought about how different all the songs were, it just didn't seem to make the most sense to go into the studio with, 4 or 5 songs that they had written at that time that all sounded kind of different, with potentially the wrong guy for some of the songs and the right guy for maybe one of the songs. So I think that's when we really started strategizing a way to do individual song releases for some of these tracks. Initially, when he brought the idea to me, I think I probably frowned deeply and was crying inside because of the work that it takes to set up just one single. I tend to be a crusher of dreams to bands with big ideas, and I hate shutting them down, but sometimes logistically it is impossible or way too time-consuming or expensive to realize some of the actually really awesome ideas that bands come up with sometimes. But Jarvis is persistent, and Jarvis is determined, and he had a lot of good reasons why we should pursue this and why fans would really like to own these collectible pieces. And at that point, I think I was convinced. And we, together, Jarvis and I really worked on a way to logistically make it happen within the framework of how Century Media was operating at the time. 7-inch singles are not easy to produce. They cost about the same as a 12-inch single. And trying to figure out how many to make, when to make them, how to space them out, and then plan the digital rollout as well. It's a little bit of a daunting task, but I was very pleased that Jarvis agreed to do digital singles as well, because the music business, streaming and digital, is growing every day, and it's just good business to not forget about everybody who does stream and listen to music digitally, whether they're doing downloads on their phone or just streaming through one of the many streaming services. But once we got through that, then we started working on the really nitty-gritty details, planning out the full calendar for the year of when each single was coming, what was going to come with it. And Jarvis already had some really great artists that he was working on to do the cover art. So we started working on that and the t-shirt designs, and then everything started coming together. Convincing the label to agree to this plan, to agree to multiple producers, multiple studio bookings in different parts of the world, the cost and the logistics involved in the vinyl production, even in the digital rollout, how the songs stacked on top of each other, the technical requirements to make it happen, and the timing of the rollout was pretty intense as well. Everything was really back on top of each other. And we also had embargoes on news being sent out. Publicists weren't allowed to send advance promos, so the journalists were not allowed to hear the songs in advance. We were not allowed to have pre-orders. All of this was very unfamiliar for the label and met with a lot of resistance because it required doing things pretty differently than everybody was used to doing. But Jarvis was really insistent, and he was adamant that we don't have pre-orders. He wanted people to find out about it and get it that day without waiting. He did not want journalists to know about it before the fans knew about it. It was not easy to convince the label to agree to all of this. In fact, I'd say it was one of the biggest challenges.
When the pandemic hit, nobody saw this coming. Nobody. I guess, Night Demon, we had been very fortunate. It's weird how things kind of fall into place, even when all your plans get fucked up. Not all of them get fucked up, right? So everybody was sidelined from touring, but these days with vinyl pressing, it takes months upon months, half a year to 9 months, and we had started putting in singles in 2019, and we were fully immersed in this plan, starting with Empire's Fall on April 3rd, and dropping a single. Yes, I did use the word drop. Every 5 weeks with no promotion, no advertisement, no teaser, nothing. We were just going to do that every 5 weeks. We ended up doing it 5 times in a row. But the original plan was to do it 8 times with 8 original songs. And, we had some unfinished material, which, that's how you get Wisteria, a song that we wrote when the pandemic hit, but the music was already there, stuff like this. We just wanted to stay relevant, and actually not relevant. We wanted to stay current with what was happening in the world and the situation that we were in. So back to my original point, the pandemic hits, and then April 3rd, we drop our first single. We have everybody's attention. Everybody's sidelined. Everybody's at home. Everybody wants to buy stuff online. It was insane. 1,000 records sold out in a day with no pre-order, no promotion, no teaser. We just dropped it on everybody, and I think everybody kind of thought that, like, hey, this is the precursor to a new album. My theory behind putting out the singles was, and this went back, I think in 2018, I actually pitched this to the label because, we live in a society of instant gratification. Everybody has whatever they want, when they want it. They can hit a button and it shows up at their door almost immediately. So we wanted to live in the new world and satisfy those needs, but also keep things traditional and old school and put stuff out on vinyl. People put out singles all the time. They put out singles every day. They record a song at their house. They upload it digitally. Major labels put out singles all the time. They just come to Spotify and the digital streaming platforms, Apple Music, Pandora, Tidal, all of them, YouTube. But we wanted something more. And we wanted to say, hey, the single's here today. You can watch the video on YouTube. You can watch the behind the scenes on YouTube. You can buy the vinyl today and it will show up in a day or two. And that's it. What's wrong with that, right? If you make plans for these things, you can do things like this. And again, it's a big risk because these days physical copies don't sell as well, but heavy metal physical sells great. And most times labels want to do a pre-order so they know what they're in for, so they can get a confirmation and a commitment from the buyer so they know they're not making a bunch of plastic, essentially, that they're going to have to sit on and pay warehouse fees, and it's just going to collect dust and actually cost them a lot of money. I commend Philip and I commend the record company for rolling the dice and having faith in us to deliver. And, to be honest, I hate to say this now, I hope none of those guys are listening, but I really had a feeling, just the oh shit, the fear moment when this was really going down, that like, we're going to end up with a lot of records at the end of the year that we're going to have to sell. We're going to be on tour with like 1 million 7-inches. But luckily that wasn't the case. And all 5 singles sold out within 1 to 3 days of release. The fans really proved themselves to be special for us in this whole situation by being completely supportive. We got zero backlash from this. Nothing. I can't say that I didn't see or hear one negative thing about it.
Things worked out quite fine with the singles campaign, although I was very skeptical about it in the first place. The main reason is that it's a lot of work for everyone with not so much income to make, which is of course important if you have to run a record company. But it worked out fine. The 7 inches are a nice little collector's item. So actually it's now 5 nice little collector's items. And they sold out in no time, which is good when you have a strong fan base like Night Demon. You reach your fans and they support you, and they buy those 7 inches from you, which is might probably not be the case for every band. But it worked out, especially on the digital side of things, which is of course very important these days. So the streaming numbers of each track has gone up with each new single release. And so far the streaming numbers are pretty solid. So I think this was a great success.
And at the end of the day, I think what the band had wanted, the songs standing out on their own and getting basically their day to shine in the sun, it did happen. And I would definitely say that these are some of the most impactful tracks that I think the band has written to this point. I've heard some stuff of the new songs they're writing, but I haven't heard everything. And I would definitely say that I can't wait to hear what's next.
Well, there was never any doubt that this was going to be good. As soon as we received the final master for the track Empire's Fall, like the first single that we released in early April, it was pretty clear that the material they were working on was among the best, if not the best, they had released so far. And when they followed it up with Kill the Pain, Are You Out There, and Wisteria, and the live track with Uli John Roth, you instantly knew that what they had been working on was, destined to be future fan favorites all along, I also think the 7 inches turned out great, like the effort they put in, the distinct artwork, the cover artworks, and we had some nice visualizers of videos to be released with the singles, and the physical product was always gone within, a couple of hours or a few days. And I can assure them that I'm going to be the front row at the next Night Demon show in Germany, screaming along to Empire's Fall and Kill the Pain. That's, I really love those songs, and I've listened to them so often that I know them by heart.
I wasn't back at Century Media yet, but I know for sure that the campaign caught a lot of attention, and you can see, all the singles sold out quickly. When you look at tracks like Kill the Pain, for example, on Spotify, they climbed to the top smasher for Night Demon, so there's definitely a hype going on. around certain tracks from those releases. And it's also super cool how several songs were documented. As a fan of Steve Albini, it was so cool to see exclusive behind-the-scenes footage of the time at his studio. And for Year of the Demon, for the compilation, which is to be released in March next year, or then this year, it's for fans and metal enthusiasts in general. They now have the chance to get those sold-out copies on a 12-inch vinyl, and also having those digitally available for the first time.
When talking about releasing these songs on a compilation, you know, things evolved over time. Our plans kept changing due to COVID and our own creative avenues as well. But I think in the end, there's two big reasons. One is Night Demon has a pretty clean discography, and we kind of want to keep it that way. And we feel that so many people didn't get these 7 inches, so they didn't get the B-sides. And we feel that this happened in 2020, and we need to capture this moment. We need to forever cement it on a record. And that's one of the reasons for compiling that. The other reason I would say is that the other songs that we wrote that were going to be singles, we ended up writing more songs. And those other songs, I mean, I know the 4 singles weren't very cohesive, but these are, I mean, nowhere near them as far as, I feel like the other songs that we wrote that would have been singles actually belong together on a record, whereas the 4 original songs that we released as singles do not. So again, we'll look at this thing as a compilation and not necessarily as Night Demon album number 3. It's Year of the Demon.
It's cool because it kind of goes back to the old days, you know, the 50s and stuff like that, when, you know, everybody put out singles. That was it. 45s, man. You know, nobody really put records out. You know, you get the singles, and then at the end of the year, there was a compilation, a long play album, and you had all the singles on there. So that's kind of where we took that idea from. And I think it's a cool thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't have a physical copy of these songs. You know, Spotify's cool and all that crap. Yeah, it's not really that cool because they rip us off. But anyway, not get into that too much. So this is a way to have a physical copy of all the songs. You can listen to them all in order. New artwork, new master. You know, it's just cool. It'll be good. I'm really happy we're doing that.
So 2020, a risky plan to release these singles, you know, but the band sticks to its guns and it works out great. Night Demon's campaign to release new music in 2020 is a huge success. All of that leading up to this compilation of songs collected together, Year of the Demon. So next week, we'll have more details about this album. We'll have some insight into the track listing. We'll break down the cover art and even more info about the second release that's planned for later this year of all new Night Demon material. As always, you can check out the subscribers area on nightdemon.net, and you can get a sneak peek of the album art, all the liner notes for Year of the Demon. You can view the full art and album there, but since you're getting an early kind of Night Demon podcast listener, you know, early access, if you can wait until the album is officially announced before sharing any of this stuff, that would be cool. So, a happy new year, and until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Destroy the fear inside. It's only then you realize your freedom dies by hysteria. Hysteria. Hysteria.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.